Hey guys, I'm going to teach you all how to build this papercraft elephant we call an automata because you are automating something in the model, right? So this would be how we're learning how people got movement into robotics. This dates back to the 1700s, right? So on this particular model, when you pull the tail, the trunk moves. We're going to talk about how to automate a lot of those processes and what goes into making things move, but we're going to start here. All right, so come along and follow with me. Alright, so I'm going to start off, get this keyboard out of the way, and I'm going to cut the legs of this elephant out. Now I'm going to be using an X-Acto knife. You all will probably be using scissors. In this case I'm trying to get this done as quickly as possible so I can shoot a video for you all. X-Acto is a little bit tidier, a little bit faster, but quite a bit more dangerous, so I'm not going to be handing out X-Acto knives. You'll have to make do with scissors. However, most of the things on here are going to be cut pretty easily with scissors, and you won't notice much of a difference. Let me go ahead and speed up the cutting of this, and I'll do this in all the steps so you can get to the action and not worry about all of the cutting. Okay, now that I got my legs cut out, I'm going to just kind of place them in a neat space. You'll notice throughout most of this I'm trying to keep my workspace pretty tidy. And this is where your glue is going to be kept. You'll notice that it's in a small pipette. We use those in science. And that's all you need. That's 3 milliliters of glue. And it seems like very little, but it's just enough. And I'll show you how to use that throughout this whole building process. Alright, so the first step is to get the glue out of the top and work its way slowly down to where you're going to be able to apply it. Now the benefit of using a pipette is that I can control how much and how fast the glue comes out, and it keeps you from wasting, but more importantly than that, it keeps you from using too much. That's a temptation for just about anybody using glue. You don't need a lot. So you'll see here I'm barely putting it on there. And once I've got it on there, you can use the wooden sticks that I've given you to spread that out, or just your finger. It's not going to hurt you. And you'll see I'll also play with different ways of working with the paper. So if I want the paper to kind of curve, I'm going to bend it and work with it in my hands to get it to a point to where it's going to curl up in a tube like the elephant's leg. Now right here I'm trying to get, well it's off camera, but I'm trying to get the gray tab to fit onto the back of the white area, and I'm just going to roll that back and forth and work that area where the glue was to get it to dry. Now again, the less glue I use, the better, up to a certain point. Right? If you don't use very much glue at all, it might not stick at all. But as long as it's just barely moist on the surface, you don't want it to be completely slathered in glue, is the point. Just enough to be tacky so when you touch it, it's starting to stick. And once you're there, once it's in a place where it's going to stick pretty well, you'll see I kind of moved it around a little bit to see if I get a good circle going with that leg. That's leg number 1. Alright. Same situation for legs 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to try to force out some of the glue onto the gray peg. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Alright. So I'm trying to work that glue. You'll see I get better at this as we move on through here. Barely any glue on there. In fact, that's probably too much. But enough to make the back side of it moist enough to work with, or wet. I'm using the other leg to kind of serve as a template for how I want to fold it up as I work that paper and kind of get it into a little curve. And now I'm going to take that leg and form that curve and start pressing it together. Now I'll hold it for a little bit to get that initial bond going. You see I'm working my thumbs back and forth to kind of get it to stick. And this is just something you're going to have to kind of play with, right? I can't tell you how to do it. You're just going to have to work it out as you sit at your desk and play with this one, alright? The way I got it to work was I'd get the initial stick, and then I'd roll it back and forth and kind of play with it until I was pretty confident that it was sticking really well. That takes some time to develop that kind of feel. I'm going to zoom back out. And I'm going to speed through the next two legs because I think you've kind of got the idea of how the legs are glued together now. Okay, at this point I'm applying glue so I can attach the legs together. It's important to keep the toes facing the same direction if you care about that kind of thing, but that's how it's printed out. So each leg has toes in the front. You want to glue them together so that they stick there. I just put a line of glue, a really light line of glue in between the two, and I'm holding them together and putting some friction on the back side to kind of heat it up and help the glue to stick faster. Again, you don't need a lot of glue. Can't emphasize that enough. The less glue you put on, the faster this thing will go. Okay, so now we've finished up both sets of legs. Move on to the next step, which is working on the head. So I'll have to cut that out, and then I'll show you how the head is put together. Alright, so I've got some paper clips which are available, and if you can't get your hands on some paper clips, I'm grabbing a pen to just show you some ideas for some things you could use for cutting lines like the ones you see here on the head. It's kind of tricky because it's hard to get scissors into a place like that, but if you draw on the line and you just draw deep grooves and go back and forth a bunch of times, you'll work your way through the paper, and that will be something that you can eventually poke the pen through. So I'm going to do two sides with the pen and one side with the paper clip to show you some ways that you can do that in the future. So you can see here I've worked the pen through the lines, and this will help quite a bit. I'll show you how to do it with a paper clip. Alright, so the same idea. You have worked your way through the thing. You haven't used any scissors, but you were able to cut those areas. And that's the idea, because you don't have an X-Acto knife. But you do have ingenuity and creativity. Now that that's done, I'm going to apply glue. After I bend down the glue areas, you'll see this has the dashed lines, so it's going to be a hill fold, where I bend the tab down, creating a hill. The next thing I'm going to do is score those lines. The way that I bend them cleanly is to score the lines here. I'm using a pen like you could use, although for the rest of this video I'm going to be using my X-Acto knife because it's just, like I said, a little bit more tidy, a little bit more neat, but you can use a pen, scissors, anything with a sharper edge that's going to break some of those fibers in the paper so it bends along that line a little bit easier. We call that the process of scoring. If you score the lines, they tend to fold easier. Here I am using the X-Acto knife to do the same thing. I'm not pushing as hard, so it won't cut through the paper, but it's going to cut a little bit on the top and make that easier to fold down. And you should probably do that with your tabs as well. Scoring helps you get really good and tidy folds, and good and tidy folds tend to work better. Okay, so I've cut out the trunk holder. You can see here it's got a series of dashed lines. They're all dashed, so they're all going to fold the same direction. I'm going to make hill folds for all of them. So the first step is going to be to score them. Once again, I'm using a pen to show you how you can do it at your desks. Although, like I said, for most of this video I'll be doing my scoring with the X-Acto knife. It's just quicker and more tidy. But you can, again, just use a pencil or rub your pen or anything that's going to have a kind of a hard edge. What you're trying to do is break the fibers on the back of the paper so that they fold easier. You don't have to fight them. You get pretty clean folds that way. So I'm going to fold them now along those lines that I just scored. You can see how they're holding their shape really well. After I'm done folding, I'm just going to glue this together. So I'll join this back up again when I've glued the box into the head of the elephant. You'll see the finished product where I've glued everything together.